Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and I hope you're doing super fantastic as always. And as always, I certainly am. And I, uh, I've often wrestled with, and I even wrestled with using the word wrestled. Yeah, ironic, I know. Whatever. So anyway, I've often wrestled with how mystical to get with content. See, on the audio podcast, I really kind of went out there a little bit for a while there, and then it was kind of brought to my attention, which I already knew that you've gotten off the topic. I mean, the audio podcast that I host is called My Sober Addiction. I mean, that's pretty that pretty much sums it up as to what this is about. So for me to go off in the weeds, off in the woo-woo land with the spirituality and mysticism and all of that, probably wasn't the best thing. So I'm like, well, I'm going to take my sober addiction back to what it's supposed to be about, and then use the YouTube to talk about all the other things that are of interest to me. Because, what I talk about on the podcast it is important. I mean, to those of us who have dealt with those things. But that's not who I am now, right? It has contributed to my current view and all of those things. But anyway, point is, here I am on this doing the more spiritual and woo-woo type stuff. But I have wrestled with how far into mysticism and things like that do I go? How woo-woo do you want to get? And I've always shied away from going all the way over there, but it's just something that I've pondered and gone through. But now most people are pretty receptive to that thing. Most people who would watch a video of mine are down with that, and that's and in a lot of cases that might even be what they're looking for. But anyway, so I've always been interested in like reality shifting, or just things to do with the nature of reality. And then with regards to reality shifting, as it pertains to our life and how when we do gain an understanding of reality, or even more specific with quantum physics and things like that. And I promise you, I am not interested in physics or science or math. Never was. I was always one of those guys that was more into the arts. Okay? That was the kind of student I was. I was more interested in the arts, and that's just that. So, but recently, meaning in the last few years, I did have an experience that really opened my eyes to the quantum field. But reading about and learning about anything to do with that it's sometimes difficult. It really is. If you're interested in that kind of thing, then maybe it's not so difficult. But when you start reading about something to do with quantum mechanics, it's like, sometimes it's like things I'm just not that interested. But I trudge through it. I do, and I gain an understanding. And then after, when I look back on that experience, if it's reading a book or whatever, I'm glad I did it, because it does help root in my beliefs. And it is nice to be able to prove to something that's scientific as an anchor point, as something to say, yeah, this is a little woo-woo. However, quantum entanglement or quantum physics or things like that can help explain that, and this is how. Just saying, for example, that's it. Anyway, loved ones, before I forget, would you please give this video a like, thumbs up, all that good stuff. And if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Yes. Now, there was a physicist back in the day. His name was Max Planck. Some people say Max Planck. Whatever. It's fine. Anyway, he said, this is a quote, he said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." Now, what he means by that is consciousness, what consciousness is fundamental means is that's the baseline. That's the main number one thing. Consciousness had to exist before everything else. And like in Max Planck's example, he was a very religious man, okay? And that's a little weird, I guess, maybe a little odd for someone who's into astrophysics and things like that. Somebody who's really sciencey to go down the road of religion and stuff. The two just never really seem to jive. You get science people here, you get religious people there. They never really bring it together. So that's one of the great things about Max Planck is he did bring it together. In fact, his discoveries in the quantum field were of a relief. Well, they were a relief to him. He was excited to have discovered this because he's like, this bridges my scientific work and my religious belief. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. That's what a lot of us are looking for, right? We would love to be able to bring the two together. And even Nikola Tesla, I should have looked this one up, but anyway, I can almost get this one right because it's one of my favorite Tesla quotes. But Nikola Tesla said that the day that science begins to study non-physical phenomena, they will make more progress in a decade than they did in all the years leading up to that combined, is what he meant. And that's saying a lot. He's saying within a 10-year span, more progress will be made in science if they start studying non-physical phenomena, meaning woo-woo, meaning quantum. Now, what the quantum field is like quantum entanglement, quantum anything, for example, with the observer effect, getting back to Max Planck. What that means is that if something exists, okay, it kind of exists in this nebulous bubble of potentiality, right? It could be this, it could be that, it could be anything, but it's nothing or everything, however you want to look at it, until it's observed or measured or whatever. So that's cool. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that, being very baseline, very simple, is if this atom of oxygen has never been observed, well, then it's possibly anything. It's a nebulous cloud of potential. Potentia, I think is the word. Yeah, that's the word they use. Now, when you focus on that, when you notice it, when you say, "Oh, I'm observing that atom now," it then is forced to choose. It is forced to choose to be an atom of oxygen or not, or something else. At which point it collapses to, and they use the word collapse because it's a nebulous cloud, and then all of a sudden, whoop, it kind of collapses down to that atom of oxygen that's now being observed, which is very interesting because, and it kind of ties into the whole thing where attention goes, energy flows. Not exactly, but how it ties in is whatever you put your focus on, whatever you direct your attention to, will become become real. Will come into your field. It won't just be potential anymore. So when I kind of get off in the conspiracy theory stuff, and I mention what is it that I mention? And I mentioned like the controllers of this realm and how they want to keep us distracted so that we are good worker bees, produce, consume, obey, right? So it's in their best interest to keep us dumb, to keep our minds switched off, right? So it should be no wonder why, for example, there's all kinds of chemicals in our food supply and water supply and things that cause our pineal gland, otherwise known as your third eye, or as I call it, your antenna to the outside, that it's that little bitty gland right in the center of your brain. It secretes DMT, for that matter, and also melatonin, all of that. But it's also the third eye. I mean, even the ancient Egyptians would, the eye of Horus is what the pineal gland from the side view looks like the eye of Horus. I should have I'm getting to the editing videos part where I'm going to be able to put the graphics on the screen. So bear with me. But most people know the eye of Horus. Now, the side view, two-dimensional side view of the pineal gland looks very much like the eye of Horus. In fact, a lot of people would say, and I tend to agree, that that's what they were referring to. And then you also see throughout all these ancient Egyptians and every other culture, the ancient culture, you see pine cones were it seemed they had a fascination with pine cones. Right? A little weird. It's like, okay, pine cones, huh? That's cool. Well, the pineal gland also looks like a little bitty pine cone. And it's right in the middle of your brain between the two hemispheres. It doesn't operate off of either one, or it operates off of both. Again, it's kind of like that field of potential. Anyway, so that is your antenna to your outside. That's how you are able to use your third eye and see things, or have intuitive things come to you. And yes, there are things that are in our environment that kind of switch off your pineal gland. And yes, there are ways to combat that, and we will get into that at some point. But anyway, and then also, like I said in my last video, how we are able to perceive 40 to 50 bits of information per second with our conscious mind, with the human consciousness. That's not much. And especially when you consider there are millions of bits coming at you per second. It's even estimated that now it's up to 11 million bits of information coming at you per second. It's almost like, well, it's almost overwhelming to be like, well, how can I combat that? How can I begin to focus on the things that are going to help me, or are going to advance my cause, that are going to lead me to enlightenment, to understanding, to manifest an amazing life? How am I going to be able to focus on those things if I've got all this barrage of millions coming at me? Well, that's the kicker. That's it. However, because we are now aware of this fact, we are aware of the fact that this human conscious can only perceive 40, 50, and we are aware of the fact that you're being bombarded with a bunch of unnecessary crap, negativity, things to keep you down and then stressed out and all that good stuff. There's a lot of things to keep you in a state where you are not able to focus on understanding, focus on enlightenment, focus on manifesting a beautiful life. Anyway, that's getting off into the conspiracy theory stuff. I will go there. I've done it before, and I'll do it again. But bringing it back to, bringing it back to all this, it's like everything. And when I say everything is mind, that's the whole thing about the consciousness is fundamental. If we really trace everything back, like right now, I can say this is my avatar, this is just my body, this is just my means of interacting in this particular realm. However, my real self is on the outside, my higher self is outside, jacked into here through the filter of the brain. And I have a much better connection if I have my pineal gland decalcified and running good. So there's that. But it's like when we know that all is mind and everything, all of that, so we can really dig in really, really deep if we want. Actually, I can even say there really is no I, because I can trace this even further out. I can go back and say, what I really am is just consciousness, and I have created these realities, all of these multiverses, or consciousness has. And now I am one aspect of consciousness, and I am observing one aspect of some imagined reality through this person manifested, that I've manifested, whose name is Matt Stevens. I am experiencing this potential as that guy. Now, I know that's getting way out there. However, we can go that far out, but it's not necessary. In fact, maybe we will, maybe we won't. That's kind of what I was getting at when I say I wrestle with how mystical do I want to go here? How mystical can we go? Because there are dreams within dreams within dreams. Forever, amen. Dreams within dreams. Yes. And we can trace it all the way back to where there is no I. There is no, well, that's all there is I am. But there is no Matt or you. We are just consciousness. And then we splintered off into, billions of aspects so that we can explore the creation of our own mind. But that's getting out there. And that's what I mean when I say I've wrestled with how mystical do you want to get with this stuff, Matt? And that's what that's it right there. We can go so far as to say none of this actually exists. All of this is just mind, right? And that's kind of like, well, okay. So anyway, did I get mystical enough for you there, loved one? Did I? Anyway, there you go. Anyway, so yes, we can really go out there, but the whole thing with the quantum field and the observer effect. Another good explanation is Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger was another physicist, and his illustration that he used for showing the observer effect is, he's like, if I put my cat in a box with a little poison or something in there, and we go away and we come back later, now, did the cat consume the poison and die, or is the cat still alive? It's like, I don't know. We're going to have to open the box and check. It's like, yes, but before we open the box, is the cat alive or dead? Before we check. I don't know. It is a nebulous cloud of potential. It's possibly dead, it's possibly alive. So we really have to assume it's both alive and dead, is the thing. And then when we open the box, that nebulous cloud of it's dead, it's alive, collapses to one or the other. Because we're now observing it, right? Well, the beautiful thing is we can choose what we observe. Yes, it is getting a little more difficult because of the barrage of things that are coming at us. And the fact that there's things in our environment that cause us to detach from our higher self, so that intuition and vision, spiritual vision, becomes a little bit more difficult. But all of these things we can overcome once we become aware of all of that. That's why awareness is so important. That's why I recommend having the awareness alarms every hour, 2 hours, whatever the case may be, whatever you feel like. I had somebody in a comment say he was doing it every 30 minutes. That's pretty aggressive. I mean, hey, it's good. I'm just saying, wow, that's a commitment. However often, like in this guy's case, it was every 30 minutes, an alarm goes off on my phone. And when that happens, you don't necessarily have to stop what you're doing, but you do bring yourself into the moment, into the now. And an easy way to do that is to focus on something, a body part that you don't typically focus on. Like, say your right middle toe. Just throwing that one in there. Your right middle toe. Become aware of that. It's like that's something that's there, but I never think about it. But it's there. So whatever it is, whatever the case may be, find something besides breathing and say, I am. Something that's going to center you in this moment right now. And get aware of yourself. And I do mean that in 2 words. Yourself. Become aware of the fact that you are here. You do exist. You are consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental. Nothing else exists until consciousness exists. And I know there's some people who will argue that. And they'll be like, well, if you don't know that. You don't know. You can't say that if consciousness didn't exist, then everything else, the rest of the universe still wouldn't be here. Because you don't know. All right, fine, you're right. We don't know. I guess. I do know. I don't know how to convince someone of that. But it's like none of this is here until someone observed it. That's all. That's what we know. And yes, that is proven with quantum physics, Max Planck. That's why he was so excited, because he was like, yes, it took a conscious observer to cause the universe to happen. It's encouraging. Anyway, loved ones, sorry to run a little long, but there you go. But if you would, let me know in the comments what you think. And no, I'm not just soliciting comments, although I would appreciate it, because comments and likes and all of that stuff do help to stimulate the algorithm to pick up my videos and make it available to a wider audience and all of that, and it helps the channel grow. Of course I want to grow the channel. I'm not going to. Yeah, of course I do. So anyway, if you would please, but really, in the comments, let me know, what do you think of observer effect? Also, or actually probably more importantly, what do you do to center yourself, to bring yourself into the now moment? Do you have any ideas? I'd love to hear them, because right now my best idea, I mean there's lots, but the best one I think are the awareness alarms. The alarms on your phone, every hour goes off and you get present. Turn off the autopilot. Right? So anyway, loved ones, yeah, thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Also, share this video with someone you think would enjoy it. I would appreciate that too. So yeah, that's what I got, loved ones. I do love you, and I will be back directly.